The first ships appeared at dawn. Admiral Hyan Su was drinking his morning coffee when the alarms started screaming across the bridge of the UES Determination. The hot liquid spilled across his uniform as he jumped to his feet, but he barely noticed. Outside the massive viewing window, space itself seemed to be tearing apart. "Report!" he shouted over the noise. Lieutenant Yunji's fingers flew across her control panel. Her face had gone completely white. "Sir, we have incoming ships, lots of them. They're coming out of some kind of portal system we've never seen before." Hyan Su grabbed the rail beside his command chair. In 30 years of service, he had never seen anything like this. The ships that poured through the glowing tiers in space were huge. Each one was at least 10 times bigger than his flagship. They looked like they were made of crystal and metal twisted together in impossible ways. "How many?" he asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. "Still counting, sir," Yunji said. Her voice shook slightly. "At least 2,000 so far, maybe more." The alien ships spread out in perfect formation. They moved with a grace that human ships could never match. Within minutes, they had formed a complete sphere around Earth. Every escape route was blocked. Every possible direction led to alien weapons. On the planet below, President So-min was pulled from her sleep by her security team. She threw on her clothes and ran to the emergency command center buried deep beneath the Capitol building. The walls were lined with screens showing the alien ships from every angle. "What do we know?" she asked as soon as she entered the room. Defense Minister Wu Jin looked grim. "Nothing good. They appeared without warning. Our early detection systems didn't pick up anything until they were already here. We estimate their fleet size at over 3,000 ships." General Tae-ho pointed at one of the screens. "Each ship appears to be a battleship. We're looking at enough firepower to destroy our entire planet several times over." President So-min felt her stomach drop. Earth's entire defense fleet numbered only 112 ships. They were good ships, built with the best technology humanity could create, but they were badly outnumbered. "Have they tried to communicate?" she asked. "Not yet," said Communications Director Ji-won. "But something's happening now." Every screen in the room suddenly went black. Then a face appeared. It was clearly not human. The creature had skin that looked like polished stone and eyes that glowed with an inner light. When it spoke, its voice was cold and empty of all emotion. "People of Earth," it said, "I am Overlord Thesakar of the Velkari Empire. Your world is now surrounded by our fleet. You have no chance of escape or victory." President So-min's hands clenched into fists. She had always known this day might come. Ever since humanity had first reached the stars, they had wondered if they were alone. Now they had their answer, and it was worse than their worst nightmares. "We have conquered 17 worlds before yours," the alien continued. "Each one believed they could resist us. Each one was wrong. Your primitive technology is no match for our power." Back in space, Admiral Hyan Su watched the broadcast with his crew. The bridge was silent except for the hum of the ship's engines. Every face showed the same expression of fear and determination mixed together. "Your terms are simple," Thesakar said. "You have 72 hours to surrender completely. Your governments must dissolve. Your military must lay down all weapons. Your people must prepare for transport to labor worlds throughout our empire." Lieutenant Yunji made a small sound of horror. Slavery. That's what the aliens were offering. Complete slavery for the entire human race. "If you refuse," the alien leader continued, "we will demonstrate our power by destroying one of your major cities every hour until you comply. After that, we will eliminate all life on your planet and take what resources we need from your dead world." The transmission ended. The screens went back to showing the alien fleet in all its terrible glory. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The weight of the situation pressed down on everyone in both the space fleet and the underground command center. 3,000 alien warships. 72 hours. Surrender or die. President So-min was the first to break the silence. "General Tae-ho, what are our military options?" The old soldier's face was hard as stone. "Honestly, none. Even if every one of our ships performed perfectly, even if we managed to destroy 10 alien ships for everyone we lost, we'd still be wiped out completely. There has to be something, Defense Minister Wu Jin said. We can't just give up. Military analyst Ji Wan had been running calculations on her computer. She looked up with tears in her eyes. The math is clear. If fighting starts, we'll be defeated in less than 6 hours. Maybe less than 3. Up on the space station orbiting Mars, Captain Minho was having a very different reaction to the news. He stood in the communication center of the Titan research facility, reading a message that had just arrived through a secure channel. The message was short, but it made him smile for the first time since the aliens had appeared. The message said, "Package delivered. All assets in position. Wait for signal." Minho deleted the message and looked out at the red planet below. Mars looked peaceful and quiet, just like it had for the past 30 years. But looks could be very deceiving. He activated his personal communicator and sent a simple reply. Understood. Standing by. Back on Earth, President So-min made the hardest decision of her life. We need to buy time. General Taeho, put our fleet in defensive positions around Earth. Make it look like we're preparing for a fight. Ma'am, the general said carefully, if we do that, they might attack before the deadline. I don't think they will, So-min said. They seem very confident. They want us to surrender, not fight. A battle would cost them ships, even if they win easily. They'd rather have us give up. Admiral Hyun-soo received his orders an hour later. He spread his small fleet around Earth in what looked like a defensive formation. It was a brave gesture, but everyone knew it was meaningless. 100 ships against 3,000 was not a battle. It was a massacre waiting to happen. As the first day passed, the alien ships did nothing but wait. They hung in space like a collection of deadly jewels, their weapons pointed at the planet below. Every few hours, they would broadcast their demands. Again. Surrender or die. No negotiation. No mercy. But in the deepest levels of the Antarctic Research Station, Dr. Yan-Su was busy with calculations that might change everything. She was very old now, over 90, but her mind was still sharp. She had been waiting for this day for 30 years. Are you ready? Asked her assistant, a young engineer named Da-un. Dr. Yan-Su looked at the data on her screen one more time. Everything was perfect. Everything was in place. Send the message, she said quietly. Tell them the trap is ready to spring. High, above Earth, the alien fleet continued to wait. Overlord Thesakar was confident that the humans would surrender soon. They always did. Fear was the greatest weapon in the galaxy, and he wielded it perfectly. He had no idea that his fleet was already surrounded. 30 years earlier, Dr. Yan-Su had been much younger and much more naive about the universe. She thought the blinking light on her deep space scanner was just another piece of space junk floating near Pluto. She was wrong. The object was sending out a weak distress signal. It took her team 3 days to decode the message, and when they finally understood it, everything changed forever. Help us, the message said in broken English. Ship dying. People dying. Please help. Dr. Yan-Su convinced her superiors to mount a rescue mission. They found a ship that looked like nothing humans had ever built. It was shaped like a teardrop made of silver metal and glowing blue crystal. Most of it was badly damaged. Holes had been burned through the hull in dozens of places. Inside, they found 7 survivors of a species that called themselves Andrians. They looked somewhat like humans, but taller and thinner, with skin that had a slight blue tint. Their leader was a female named Ambassador Keltar. The Andreans were dying. Their life support systems had failed weeks ago. Dr. Yan-Su and her medical team worked around the clock to save them. They built a secret facility deep beneath the Antarctic ice where the aliens could recover safely. It took months for the Andrians to learn enough English to tell their story. When they finally did, it was more terrifying than any human nightmare. Wenda are the last, Keltar explained to Dr. Yan-Su and the small team of humans who knew about them. Our world of 12 billion people is gone, all dead, all enslaved, all because of the Velkari Empire. The Andrian showed them images of her homeworld before the attack. Beautiful cities of crystal and light, peaceful people who had never known war. Children playing in gardens beneath 2 purple suns. Then she showed them what the Velkari had done. The cities were now ruins. The gardens were ash. The children were gone. They came just like they came to you, Keltar said. Huge fleet, demands for surrender. We tried to fight. We had good ships, good weapons. It did not matter. They had fought 1,000 battles. We had fought none. Engineer Da-Un, who was just a young graduate student then, asked the question that changed everything. How did you escape? We did not escape, Keltar said sadly. We were sent away. Before the final battle, our leaders chose 100 of us to carry our knowledge to other worlds, to warn them, to help them prepare. She paused and looked directly at Dr. Yan-Su. We have been traveling for 20 years, looking for a world that might stand against them. Most species surrender without fighting. Others fight and lose quickly. But your people might be different. Over the following months, the Andrians shared their knowledge with the secret human team. What they learned was both encouraging and terrifying. The Velkari Empire had been conquering worlds for over 300 years. They always used the same strategy. Send a massive fleet to surround the target world. Demand surrender. If the planet refused, destroy it completely as an example to others. But there was something interesting about their pattern. The Velkari only attacked worlds they were certain they could defeat easily. They had never fought a long war. They had never faced an enemy that could truly surprise them. Your technology is different from ours, explained Velon, the Andrian scientist who worked most closely with Dr. Yan-Su. In some ways, you are behind us. In other ways, you are ahead. Your computers are more advanced. Your weapons use kinetic energy in ways we never thought of. Admiral Jaemin was brought into the secret project after 6 months. He was young then, just a captain, but he had a reputation for creative thinking. When he heard the full story, he immediately understood what needed to be done. We have to make them think we're weak, he said during a meeting in the hidden Antarctic base. If they believe we're just another primitive world, they'll use their standard tactics. That gives us an advantage. Dr. Yan-Su frowned. What kind of advantage? They still have thousands of ships. Jaemin smiled. They have thousands of ships that they'll bring to one place at one time. If we can put our own fleet behind them? What fleet? Da-Un asked. We barely have 50 ships in our entire space navy. The fleet we're going to build in secret, Jaemin said. The fleet they'll never see coming. The plan they developed was incredibly ambitious. Humanity would spend the next 30 years preparing for the Velkari invasion. They would build a secret fleet using hidden shipyards throughout the solar system. They would establish bases in other star systems. Most importantly, they would make contact with resistance movements on worlds the Velkari had already conquered. The project was given the code name Operation Mirror. Only a few dozen people on Earth knew about it. Everyone else would continue with their normal lives, building the official Earth defense fleet that would serve as a decoy. Construction began immediately. Using Andrian cloaking technology combined with human engineering, they built the first hidden shipyard inside a hollowed-out asteroid between Mars and Jupiter. The work was slow and careful. Every piece of equipment had to be moved in secret. Every worker had to sign agreements that would put them in prison for life if they revealed what they were doing. Commander Sung-Woo led the first scouting missions to nearby star systems. His small ships, enhanced with Andrian faster-than-light drives, could travel much farther and faster than anything the public knew about. He established secret bases on planets that were light years from Earth. Meanwhile, Dr. Hyojin worked on developing new weapons that combined human and Andrean technology. The breakthrough came when she figured out how to merge human kinetic weapons with Andrian energy systems. The new weapons could punch through shields that were designed to stop conventional energy blasts, but the most important part of the plan was making contact with other conquered worlds. Intelligence Director Dong-hyun used Andrean communication technology to reach resistance groups across the galaxy. What he found gave him hope. The Velkari Empire was not as stable as it appeared. On dozens of worlds, small groups of rebels continued to fight. They had been waiting for decades for someone to coordinate their efforts, for someone to give them hope that the Empire could be defeated. Commander Sun-hee became the link between Earth and these distant rebels. She traveled to conquered worlds in ships that were completely invisible to Velkari sensors. She helped organize supply lines and communication networks. Most importantly, she promised that help was coming. As the years passed, the secret fleet grew larger and more powerful. Hidden shipyards in asteroid belts and on remote moons produced hundreds of ships. The workers who built them believed they were working on deep space mining equipment or scientific research vessels. Only the highest-ranking officers knew they were building the largest military fleet in human history. The Andreans helped with every aspect of the project. Keltar worked with human diplomats to prepare for the day when they would need to coordinate with alien resistance movements. Velian shared advanced technologies that made human ships faster and more powerful than anything the Velkari had faced before. Dr. Yonsu coordinated everything from her base in Antarctica. She was getting older, but her mind remained sharp. She knew that humanity would only get one chance to surprise the Velkari. Everything had to be perfect. By year 25 of the project, the secret fleet numbered over 2,000 ships. Hidden bases had been established in 17 star systems. Resistance movements on 43 conquered worlds were ready to strike when the signal came. The hardest part was keeping the secret. Several times, curious journalists or suspicious government officials came close to discovering Operation Mirror. Each time, the cover-up teams managed to redirect their attention to harmless projects. Meanwhile, the official Earth defense fleet continued to grow slowly and publicly. The ships were good, but they used only technology that humans could have, developed on their own. To any outside observer, Earth would look like a typical primitive world with limited military capability. As year 30 approached, long-range sensors finally detected the Velkari fleet heading toward Earth. The message went out through secret channels to every hidden base and every resistance cell. The trap was ready. After 3 decades of preparation, humanity was about to find out if their plan would work. Dr. Yansu stood in her command center beneath the Antarctic ice and watched the alien fleet surround Earth. She was old now, but she had lived to see this moment. The moment when the galaxy would learn that humans were much more dangerous than they appeared. The Velkari thought they had surrounded Earth. They had no idea that Earth had surrounded them. Chief Engineer Young Hee had been building things her entire life, but nothing had prepared her for Operation Mirror. The project was so massive and so secret that sometimes she felt like she was living in a dream. The first hidden shipyard took 3 years to complete. It was built inside an asteroid that was 20 kilometers long and 15 kilometers wide. Young Hee's teams used mining robots to hollow out the interior, working 24 hours a day to create the largest construction facility humans had ever built. The hardest part was keeping it hidden. Every piece of equipment had to be moved through space routes that looked like normal cargo runs. Every worker had to believe they were building mining equipment or research stations. Young Hee often worked 18-hour days just keeping track of all the lies they had to tell. But the Andrian cloaking technology made it all possible. The entire asteroid shipyard was invisible to any sensors that the Velkari might have in the area. As far as the rest of the galaxy was concerned, it was just another piece of space rock floating in the asteroid belt. By year 5 of the project, the first secret warship rolled out of the hidden construction bay. It looked similar to official Earth defense ships from the outside, but the similarities ended there. The hull was made from Andrian crystal metal composites that were 3 times stronger than human steel. The engines used hybrid technology that could push the ship faster than anything in the official fleet. Young Hee watched the first test flight with tears in her eyes. The ship moved through space like a dancer, turning and accelerating with impossible grace. The weapons test came next. When the hybrid kinetic energy cannons fired, they punched through a target asteroid like it was made of paper. "It works," she whispered to her assistant. "It actually works." But one ship was not enough. The plan called for thousands of ships, and they needed to be built without anyone noticing. Young Hee designed a network of construction facilities throughout the solar system. Some were built inside asteroids like the first one. Others were hidden on the dark sides of moons or in the outer reaches of the system where no one ever looked. Captain Sungwoo's job was even more dangerous. While Young Hee built ships in secret, he had to establish secret bases in other star systems. His small scouting vessels used the most advanced Andrean technology to slip past Velkari patrols and reach distant worlds. The first mission took him to a system 12 light years from Earth. The planets there had been conquered by the Velkari 15 years earlier. The original inhabitants were all dead or enslaved, but the world still had valuable resources. Sung Woo landed on a moon that orbited a gas giant in the outer part of the system. The surface was covered with ice, but underground there were vast caverns that would be perfect for hiding ships and supplies. His team spent 6 months building a base that could support a battle fleet when the time came. The work was incredibly dangerous. Velkari patrol ships passed through the system every few weeks. Each time, Sung Woo's people had to shut down all their equipment and hide in the deepest parts of the caves. If they were discovered, not only would they die, but the entire Operation Mirror project would be revealed. But they were never caught. The Andrean cloaking technology was too good, and the Velkari were too confident that no one would dare to operate in their territory. By the end of the first year, Sung Woo had established secure bases in 4 different star systems. Back on Earth, Dr. Hyojin was working on the weapons that would make the plan possible. The problem was simple. Velkari ships had shields that could stop any energy weapon that humans knew how to build. But the solution was anything but simple. Hyojin spent months studying captured Velkari technology that the Andrians had managed to save from their homeworld. The shields worked by deflecting energy attacks around the ship. They were incredibly effective against lasers, plasma cannons, and particle beams, but they had never been designed to stop physical projectiles moving at high speed. "It's like trying to stop a bullet with a mirror," Hyojin explained to Dr. Yan Su during one of their weekly meetings. "The shield can deflect energy, but solid matter just punches right through." The breakthrough came when she figured out how to combine human kinetic weapons with Andrian energy systems. The new hybrid cannons fired projectiles that were surrounded by energy fields. The energy fields would overload Velkari shields for just a fraction of a second, and in that tiny gap, the physical projectile would punch through and destroy the ship. Testing the new weapons required even more secrecy. Hyojin's team had to find targets that they could destroy without anyone noticing. They used abandoned satellites and pieces of space junk, but every test had to be carefully planned to avoid detection. The first successful test made Hyojin laugh out loud with excitement. The hybrid cannon fired at a piece of Velkari's shield. Technology that the Andrians had provided. The energy field overloaded the shield exactly as predicted, and the kinetic projectile destroyed the target completely. "We can beat them," she said to her team. "We actually have weapons that can beat them." But weapons and ships were only part of the plan. The most important element was the galaxy-wide network of resistance movements that Intelligence Director Dong Hyun was building. Using Andrean communication technology, Dong Hyun made contact with rebel groups on dozens of conquered worlds. What he found was both encouraging and heartbreaking. The Velkari Empire had been brutal in their conquests, but they had not been able to crush the spirit of every species they defeated. On a world called Koresh, a group of survivors had been hiding in underground cities for 40 years. They had managed to save some of their technology and were ready to fight if someone could coordinate their efforts with other resistance groups. On Vorth Prime, the original inhabitants had been enslaved, but a few thousand had escaped to the planet's polar regions. They had been conducting hit-and-run attacks against Velkari installations for decades, waiting for the day when a larger rebellion might be possible. The most important contact was on Thalar, a world that the Velkari used as a major supply base. The resistance there included former soldiers who knew the locations of weapons depots and communication centers. If they could capture those facilities during a coordinated attack, it would cripple Velkari operations across an entire sector of the galaxy. Commander Sun Hee became Dong Hyun's field agent, traveling to these distant worlds in ships that were completely invisible to Velkari sensors. Her job was to help organize the resistance groups and prepare them for the day when Earth would give the signal to attack. The work was incredibly dangerous. Sun Hee had to land on conquered worlds, make contact with underground resistance fighters, and help them coordinate their plans without getting caught by Velkari security forces. On her first mission to Koresh, she spent 3 months living in the underground cities with the survivors. They taught her their language and their culture, and she taught them about Earth and the larger plan to defeat the Velkari Empire. "How do we know you are real?" asked Galan, the leader of the Koresh resistance. "How do we know this is not some Velkari trick to make us reveal ourselves?" Sun Hee had brought proof. She showed them video messages from the Andrean survivors on Earth. She shared technical specifications for the hybrid weapons that Dr. Haye Jin had developed. Most importantly, she demonstrated communication technology that the Velkari had never seen before. "We are real," she told them, "and we are going to win." By year 15 of Operation Mirror, the Resistance Network included 43 different worlds. Each group had been given communication equipment and detailed plans for their part of the coordinated attack. They would strike at Velkari supply lines, communication centers, and military bases at exactly the moment when Earth's hidden fleet attacked the invasion force. The coordination was incredibly complex. Sun He had to visit each world multiple times, updating plans and making sure everyone understood their role. The timing had to be perfect. If the resistance attacks started too early, the Velkari would have time to reinforce their defenses. If they started too late, Earth's fleet might be fighting alone. Meanwhile, the secret shipyards continued their work. By year 20, the hidden fleet numbered over 1,500 ships. By year 25, it was over 2,000. Each ship was more advanced than anything in the official Earth defense fleet. They were faster, stronger, and armed with weapons that could punch through Velkari shields. But the most important achievement was keeping the secret. Despite involving thousands of workers and spanning multiple star systems, Operation Mirror remained completely hidden from public view. The official Earth government continued to build their small public fleet, while having no idea that a much larger force was being prepared in secret. The deception was so complete that even Earth's own military leaders believed they were hopelessly outnumbered when the Velkari fleet finally arrived. Admiral Hyun-soo and his officers genuinely thought they were facing impossible odds. They had no idea that help was already in position. Dr. Hyun-soo coordinated everything from her command center in Antarctica. At 90 years old, she was too frail to travel to the shipyards or resistance bases, but her mind was still sharp enough to manage the most complex military operation in human history. The final pieces fell into place in year 2090. Fleet Admiral Chang Min floated in the command center of his invisible flagship, watching Earth through screens that showed the Velkari fleet surrounding his homeworld. To anyone looking, space around the alien armada appeared empty. They had no idea that 3,000 human warships were positioned in perfect attack formation behind them. Chang Min had been waiting for this moment for 15 years. His hidden fleet was spread across millions of cubic kilometers of space, every ship wrapped in Andrean cloaking technology that made them completely invisible to Velkari's sensors. The aliens were so confident in their superiority that they had not even bothered to scan for hidden enemies. "Status report," Chang Min said quietly to his communications officer. "All ships report ready, sir," Lieutenant Kang Dae replied. "The Thalar strike force is in position. The Karesh Liberation Fleet is standing by. Resistance groups on 43 worlds are awaiting the signal." Chang Min nodded. After 30 years of preparation, everything had come down to this moment. The Velkari had made a fatal mistake. They had brought their entire invasion fleet to one location, believing that overwhelming force would make victory certain. Instead, they had given humanity the perfect target. Captain Bo Young commanded one of the stealth destroyer squadrons that had been shadowing the Velkari fleet since before their arrival at Earth. Her ships were so close to the alien vessels that she could see individual weapon ports on their hulls, but the enemy had no idea she was there. "Target data is perfect, Admiral," she reported through the secure communication system. "We have firing solutions on every command ship in their formation." Bo Young's destroyers had been feeding targeting information to the hidden fleet for hours. Every Velkari ship had been identified and classified. The humans knew which vessels carried the most powerful weapons, which ones housed the command staff, and which ones contained the shield generators that protected the smaller ships. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. When the attack began, Bo Young's stealth ships would hit the command vessels first, destroying the Velkari leadership before they could coordinate a response. Then the main fleet would decloak and attack from behind while the surviving aliens were still trying to figure out what had happened. But the attack on the Velkari fleet was only part of the plan. At the same moment, human task forces would strike at Velkari installations across the galaxy while resistance movements launched. Coordinated uprisings on dozens of conquered worlds. Admiral Kang Dae commanded the task force assigned to attack the Velkari supply base at Thalar. His fleet of 200 ships had been hiding in the outer regions of that star system for 3 days, waiting for the signal from Earth. "Are our friends on the ground ready?" he asked his intelligence officer. "Yes, sir." Commander Sun-hee reports that the Thalar resistance has captured the main communication center. As soon as we attack the orbital stations, they'll cut off all communication between this system and the rest of the Empire. Kang Dai smiled grimly. The Velkari had built their empire on fear and superior communication. When worlds across the galaxy simultaneously erupted in rebellion, the Empire's ability to coordinate a response would be crippled. Admiral Seo Jun had an even more ambitious target. His fleet was approaching the heavily fortified world of Kelm, which served as a regional command center for an entire sector of the Velkari Empire. If his attack succeeded, 12 star systems would be cut off from Imperial control. Intelligence reports that Kelm has over 50 defense platforms, his tactical officer warned. Intelligence also reports that those platforms have never faced weapons like ours, Seo Jun replied. The Velkari have been fighting the same kind of battles for 300 years. Today, they learn what happens when someone changes the rules. Back at Earth, the Velkari ultimatum was entering its final hours. Overlord Thesakar was growing impatient with the humans' delay in surrendering. He had expected them to give up within the first day, like most species did when faced with his overwhelming fleet. "Perhaps we should demonstrate our power," suggested his second-in-command, war leader Keshaval. "Destroy one of their cities to show them we are serious." Theskar considered this. Not yet. Their government may still see reason. But prepare the bombardment systems. If they have not surrendered, in 6 hours, we will begin destroying their population centers. The Velkari had no idea that their conversation was being monitored by Captain Bo Young's stealth ships. Every word was transmitted back to Chang Min's command vessel, and from there to the resistance networks across the galaxy. "They're planning to start the bombardment early," Bo Young reported. "We may need to move up our timeline." Chang Min checked the status boards. Every element of the plan was in position, but they had been hoping to wait until the official deadline expired. It would look better to the galaxy if humanity appeared to be defending itself rather than launching a surprise attack. But if the Velkari started murdering civilians, all political considerations became meaningless. "Signal all units," Chang Min ordered. "If the aliens make any move toward Earth's surface, we attack immediately." The message went out through the galaxy-spanning communication network that had taken decades to build. In hidden bases around distant stars, human fleet commanders acknowledged the order. On conquered worlds, resistance leaders prepared their fighters for battle. Dr. Yeonsu watched everything from her command center beneath the Antarctic ice. At 91 years old, she was too frail to stand for long periods, but her mind was still sharp enough to coordinate the most complex military operation in galactic history. "Status of the resistance networks?" she asked her aide. "All groups report ready, Doctor. The Koresh fighters have seized control of 3 major cities. The Vorth Prime resistance has captured the main spaceport. Even the groups on recently conquered worlds are ready to strike." Yeonsu nodded slowly. 30 years of her life had been spent preparing for this day. She had been young when the Andrean refugees first arrived, full of hope and determination. Now she was old and tired, but she had lived to see the plan reach fruition. "And our fleet?" "Admiral Chang Min reports all ships in position and ready for battle. The targeting data is perfect. When we attack, we'll have complete surprise." The irony was almost amusing. The Velkari had spent 300 years conquering worlds by surrounding them with overwhelming force. They had never faced an enemy that could turn their own tactics against them. Today, for the first time in their imperial history, they would discover what it felt like to be surrounded. On the bridge of the UES Determination, Admiral Hyun-soo was preparing for what he believed would be humanity's last battle. His small fleet of official Earth defense ships was arranged in a protective formation around the planet, ready to fight a hopeless battle against impossible odds. He had no idea that help was coming. "Sir," Lieutenant Unji reported, "we're receiving a message from the Velkari fleet. They're demanding a response to their ultimatum. Tell them we're still considering their terms," Hyun-soo ordered. "Buy us as much time as possible." Every minute they could delay the battle was another minute for Earth's government to find some impossible solution. Hyun-soo didn't believe such a solution existed, but he would do his duty until the end. What he didn't know was that the solution had been in place for 30 years, waiting for exactly this moment. Deep in space, Changmin's hidden fleet began moving into final attack positions. The ships moved slowly and carefully, maintaining their cloaking fields while positioning themselves for maximum effect. Soon, 3,000 Velkari vessels would find themselves caught between Earth's surface and humanity's true military might. Trap was almost ready to spring. After 3 decades of preparation, Operation Mirror was about to become Operation Revenge, and the Velkari were about to learn that humans had been playing a much longer game than anyone had imagined. The moment Overlord Thesakar gave the order to destroy New York City, everything changed forever. "Begin bombardment," the alien commander said with cold satisfaction. "Show these primitives the price of defying the Empire," Captain Bo Young heard. Those words through her ship's sensors and immediately activated the emergency signal. "All units, this is Stealth 6. The aliens are targeting civilians. Execute Operation Mirror immediately." Across the galaxy, the single word mirror flashed through communication networks that had been 30 years in the building. On 43 conquered worlds, resistance fighters emerged from hiding places and launched coordinated attacks. In distant star systems, hidden human fleets dropped their cloaking fields and began the largest military operation in galactic history. But nowhere was the surprise more complete than in Earth's orbit. Admiral Changmin's voice echoed through 3,000 human warships. "All ships drop cloak and attack. Show them what happens when someone threatens our home." The space around the Velkari fleet suddenly filled with human vessels that appeared out of nowhere. Where moments before there had been empty space, now there were battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and fighters in perfect attack formation. The Velkari response was immediate and predictable. Complete panic. "Impossible!" Thesakar screamed as his bridge shook under the impact of human weapons. Where did they come from? How many ships do they have? His sensors had been tracking just over 100 primitive human vessels. Now they were detecting over 3,000 advanced warships that somehow appeared behind his fleet without any warning. Captain Haywan led the first wave of human ships into battle. Her heavy cruiser, the UES Retribution, opened fire with hybrid kinetic energy weapons that Dr. Haya Jin had spent 15 years perfecting. The alien ship she targeted had shields that could stop any conventional energy weapon, but they were useless against the new human technology. The kinetic projectile punched through the Velkari shields like they were made of paper and tore the enemy ship apart from the inside. Haywan watched with grim satisfaction as the alien vessel exploded in a ball of fire and debris. "Target destroyed," she reported. "Moving to next target." All around Earth's orbit, the same scene was repeated thousands of times. Velkari ships that had seemed invincible suddenly found themselves under attack by weapons they had never seen before. Their shields, designed to stop energy attacks, provided no protection against the human hybrid cannons. Commander Il Sung, monitoring Velkari communications from his intelligence ship, could hardly believe what he was hearing. The alien fleet commanders were reporting impossible losses. Ships that should have been able to withstand any attack were being destroyed by single shots from human weapons. "Sir," Il Sung reported to Admiral Changmin, "the aliens are in complete chaos. Their formation is breaking apart. They're trying to retreat, but our ships are too fast." Changmin smiled coldly. The Velkari had spent 300 years as hunters, always attacking weaker prey that couldn't fight back effectively. Today, they discovered what it felt like to be the prey. Lieutenant Na Ray piloted her fighter squadron through the chaos of the battle, targeting Velkari command ships with precision strikes. Her small ship was almost impossible for the aliens to hit, moving too fast and changing direction too quickly for their weapons to track. She locked onto a Velkari flagship and fired her missiles. The alien ship's shields flared briefly, then collapsed as the kinetic warheads punched through. The massive vessel began breaking apart, its hull splitting open like a flower blooming in reverse. "Command ship destroyed," Narai reported. "Their entire left flank is losing coordination." But the battle around Earth was only part of the larger operation. Across the galaxy, human task forces were striking at Velkari installations, while resistance movements launched their own attacks. Admiral Kangday's fleet emerged from hiding in the Thalar system and immediately attacked the orbital supply stations. The Velkari defenders had been expecting another routine patrol, not a full-scale assault by ships they had never seen before. "Sir, the resistance fighters on the surface have captured the main communication center," his intelligence officer reported. "All communications to other systems have been cut." Kang Day nodded. Without communication, the Velkari Empire couldn't coordinate a response to the galaxy-wide uprising. Each system would have to fight alone, not knowing what was happening elsewhere. The attack on the surface installations was even more devastating. Commander Sun He had spent years working with the Thaler resistance, helping them plan for this exact moment. When the human fleet attacked from orbit, the resistance fighters struck at ground-based defense systems and supply depots. "The main weapons depot is ours," Sun He reported from the planet's surface. "We've captured enough Velkari equipment to arm 3 more resistance cells, but the most ambitious attack was taking place at Kelm, where Admiral Seo Jun's fleet was assaulting the regional command center for an entire sector of the Empire. The defenses there were the strongest the Velkari had ever built, but they had never faced weapons like the ones humanity now wielded. "Defense Platform 12 is down," his tactical officer reported. "Platform 15 is heavily damaged and losing power." Seo Jun watched the battle display with satisfaction. The Velkari had built their defenses to stop conventional energy weapons and kinetic projectiles. They had never imagined that someone might combine both technologies into a single weapons system that could overwhelm their shields. "Begin landing operations," he ordered. "I want control of that command center within the hour." Back at Earth, the Velkari fleet was in full retreat. What had begun as a confident invasion had turned into a complete disaster. Overlord Thessakar's flagship was badly damaged. Half his fleet was destroyed or disabled, and the rest were fleeing in all directions. "Sir," one of his officers reported with fear in his voice, "we are receiving reports from across the Empire. Attacks on Thalar, Kelm, Viridian, and 17 other systems. Rebellions on dozens of conquered worlds. The humans somehow coordinated a galaxy-wide assault." Theskar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. In 300 years of conquest, the Velkari Empire had never faced anything like this. They had always been the ones with superior technology, better coordination, and overwhelming force. Today, all of those advantages belong to their enemies. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "They're supposed to be a primitive species." Our intelligence reports said they had barely reached the stars. What Thessakar didn't understand was that humanity had been preparing for this battle for 30 years. While the Velkari had grown complacent with easy victories, humans had been studying their tactics, building better weapons, and coordinating with resistance movements across the galaxy. Admiral Changmin's fleet pursued the retreating Velkari, ships without mercy. After centuries of conquest and enslavement, the aliens were finally facing justice for their crimes. Every ship that was destroyed meant fewer oppressors and more hope for the countless species they had enslaved. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving surrender requests from multiple Velkari ships." Changmin considered this. The original plan had been to destroy the entire fleet, but perhaps some could be spared if they were willing to cooperate. "Tell them they can surrender, but only unconditionally. Any ship that tries to escape or fight will be destroyed immediately." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Velkari forces that had seemed invincible just hours before were surrendering to human fleets and local resistance movements. The empire that had dominated the galaxy for 3 centuries was collapsing in a single day. On conquered worlds, populations that had lived under Velkari rule for generations were seeing their oppressors defeated for the first time. The news spread from planet to planet through the communication networks that Commander Sun He had helped establish. Dr. Yan Su watched the battle reports from her command center in Antarctica. At 91 years old, she had lived to see the plan she had helped create 30 years ago finally succeed. The Andrian refugees who had first told humanity about the Velkari Empire would be avenged at last. "Doctor," her aide said quietly, "Admiral Changmin reports that Overlord Thessakar is requesting terms for surrender." Yan Su smiled. The alien who had threatened to enslave humanity was now begging for mercy. After 300 years of conquest, the Velkari Empire was finally learning what defeat felt like. "Tell the Admiral that we'll accept surrender, but only if it includes the complete liberation of all conquered worlds," and full reparations for the species they've enslaved. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of Velkari domination was over, and a new era of freedom was about to begin. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, Overlord Thessakkar stood in chains before the Galactic Liberation Council. The being who had once commanded the fear of 1,000 worlds now looked small and broken, his polished stone skin dull with defeat. President Somin sat at the center of the council chamber, flanked by representatives from 47 formerly enslaved species. The room itself was aboard the captured Velkari flagship, now renamed the UES Freedom and serving as a mobile court for war crimes trials. Thessakkar of the former Velkari Empire, Somin said formally, "You are charged with genocide, enslavement, and crimes against countless innocent civilizations. How do you answer these charges?" The former overlord raised his head slowly. The arrogance that had once defined him was completely gone. We believed we were bringing order to the galaxy. We thought lesser species needed our guidance. Ambassador Keltar, the Andrian who had first warned humanity about the Velkari threat 30 years ago, stepped forward. She was older now, but her voice was strong with the satisfaction of seeing justice finally served. "Order?" she said. "You call the destruction of my homeworld order? You call the enslavement of 12 billion people guidance?" Thessakkar had no answer. The evidence against him and the Velkari leadership was overwhelming. Video records from conquered worlds showed the systematic destruction of entire civilizations. The Empire's own files contained detailed plans for genocide and enslavement. Admiral Chang Min watched the proceedings from the observation deck. His hidden fleet had grown into the most powerful military force in the galaxy, but now it served a very different purpose. Instead of preparing for war, human ships were delivering supplies to liberated worlds and helping former slaves return to their homeworlds. The transformation had been remarkable. In just 6 months, the galaxy had gone from living under Velkari oppression to experiencing freedom for the first time in centuries. But the work of rebuilding was enormous. Dr. Yon Su, now 92 and confined to a wheelchair, had become the galaxy's most respected expert on post-liberation reconstruction. Her teams were working with dozens of species to rebuild their civilizations and establish new forms of government based on cooperation rather than conquest. The hardest part, she explained to a gathering of planetary leaders, is learning to trust again. After centuries of oppression, many species have forgotten how to govern themselves. The solution was a new kind of galactic organization. Unlike the Velkari Empire, which had ruled through fear and force, the Galactic Liberation Council was based on voluntary membership and mutual aid. Each world could choose its own government and way of life, but all members agreed to help defend each other against future threats. Captain Min Ho, now promoted to admiral, led the effort to establish this new system. His ships traveled from world to world, not as conquerors, but as helpers and protectors. Everywhere he went, he found species eager to join the new galactic community. On Karesh, the underground cities that had hidden rebels for 40 years were finally opening to the surface. The survivors were emerging into sunlight for the first time in decades, ready to rebuild their civilization with help from human engineers and Andrian scientists. Commander Sun He had been appointed as Earth's ambassador to the former Velkari worlds. Her years of working with resistance movements had given her unique insights into the needs of liberated populations. She traveled constantly, helping negotiate agreements between former enemies and establishing trade relationships that would benefit everyone. The work was not without challenges. Some Velkari refused to accept defeat and continued fighting from hidden bases in remote systems. Admiral Seo Jun led the task forces that hunted down these holdouts, but he always offered them the chance to surrender and join the rebuilding effort. "We're not the Velkari," he told his officers. "We don't destroy our enemies. We convert them." The strategy was working. Faced with the choice between continued fighting and peaceful cooperation, most Velkari chose peace. Many even provided valuable information about hidden weapons caches and secret facilities that needed to be secured. The greatest symbol of the new galaxy was the former Velkari capital world of Velketh. Instead of destroying the planet as many demanded, the Liberation Council voted to transform it into a center for galactic cooperation. The massive palaces where Velkari overlords had planned conquests were converted into schools and hospitals. Dr. Hyajin established a research center there where scientists from dozens of species worked together to develop new technologies for peaceful purposes. The same hybrid weapons that had defeated the Velkari fleet were being adapted for mining, construction, and space exploration. But perhaps the most important development was happening on Earth itself. The planet that had once seemed doomed to conquest had become the unofficial capital of the new galactic community. Ships from hundreds of worlds docked at orbital stations that had been built with combined human, Andrian, and even reformed Velkari technology. President So-min found herself managing not just Earth's government, but serving as a mediator for disputes between dozens of different species. It was a role she had never expected, but one she embraced with determination. "We have a responsibility," she told the Earth Council during one of their weekly meetings. "We started this revolution, and now we need to help build something better than what came before." The results spoke for themselves. Trade between worlds had increased by over 300% since the fall of the Empire. Scientific knowledge was being shared freely instead of hoarded by the Velkari elite. Most importantly, entire species that had been on the brink of extinction were beginning to recover their populations and cultures. The Andrians were among the biggest beneficiaries. Using genetic samples they had preserved during their long exile, they had begun the process of rebuilding their species. The first Andrian children born in 50 years were growing up on a new homeworld, surrounded by the crystal cities their ancestors had dreamed of rebuilding. Captain Bo Young, whose stealth ships had provided the crucial first strike against the Velkari fleet, now commanded the Galactic Defense Force. Unlike the old Empire's military, which existed to conquer and oppress, the new force existed solely to protect member worlds from threats. The irony was not lost on anyone. Humanity, which had seemed like the weakest species in the galaxy, had become its liberators and protectors. The same creativity and determination that had allowed them to survive against impossible odds now helped them build a better future for everyone. As the first anniversary of the Battle of Earth approached, Admiral Chang Min stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked out at a galaxy transformed. Where once there had been fear and oppression, now there was hope and cooperation. A message came through from the Outer Rim territories, where exploration fleets were making contact with new species that had hidden from the Velkari for centuries. Each new contact brought fresh perspectives and technologies that enriched the growing galactic community. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a signal from the Andromeda Galaxy. It appears to be a distress call from refugees fleeing some kind of invasion." Chang Min smiled. The galaxy had learned to work together, and now they were strong enough to help others beyond their own borders. The age of conquest was over, but the age of exploration and mutual aid was just beginning. In her final report to the Galactic Liberation Council, Dr. Yon Su wrote, 30 years ago, a small group of refugees told us about a terrible threat. Today, that threat has been eliminated and replaced with something far better. The galaxy is no longer ruled by fear, but guided by hope." She paused in her writing and looked out the window of her Antarctic research station. Above, the aurora danced in colors that seemed to celebrate the new age of peace. Below, the ice held the secrets of humanity's greatest victory. The Velkari had thought they were surrounding Earth to destroy it. Instead, they had given humanity the chance to surround them with justice, mercy, and the promise of a better future for all. The phrase, "humans were already at their rear," had become more than just a description of a military tactic. It had become a symbol of hope across the galaxy, reminding everyone that even the darkest situations could be turned around by courage, creativity, and the willingness to work together. And in the depths of space, new exploration fleets were already preparing for the next great adventure, carrying the banner of the Galactic Liberation Council to distant stars where other species might need help escaping their own versions of the Velkari Empire. The galaxy was free, and humanity had shown that sometimes the best way to save yourself is to save everyone else.